Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to live in a palace where every smiling face could be hiding deadly intentions? Imagine being a young prince, admired by the people, respected by the kingdom, and loved by your family, only to discover that your own relatives are plotting your death. Not on a battlefield, not through open combat, but by trapping you inside your own home and burning it to the ground. This is one of the most gripping episodes in the Mahabharata, the Jatugriha Parva, the story of the House of Lac, where intelligence triumphs over treachery and survival depends as much on wisdom as on strength. By this point in the Mahabharata, the Pandavas had become the pride of Hastinapura. Yudhishthira was admired for his wisdom and righteousness. Bhima's unmatched strength had become legendary. Arjuna's skill with the bow inspired awe in everyone who watched him. Nakula and Sahadeva, known for their grace and knowledge, completed the remarkable group of brothers. Everywhere they went, people spoke of them with affection and respect. Many citizens quietly believed that Yudhishthira would one day make the ideal king, but admiration for one family became a source of fear for another. Each cheer that echoed through the streets in honor of the Pandavas felt like an insult to Duryodhana. Every compliment given to Arjuna reminded him that his own claim to the throne seemed weaker. Jealousy slowly consumed him. It was no longer enough for him to compete with the Pandavas. He wanted them removed entirely. One night inside the royal palace, Duryodhana gathered those he trusted most, his cunning uncle Shakuni, his loyal brother Dushasana, and his close friend Karna. Together they discussed a question that would change the destiny of the Kuru dynasty forever. How could they eliminate the Pandavas without bringing suspicion upon themselves? Think about this for a moment. If someone wanted to remove a rival without appearing guilty, what would they do? A sword would leave evidence. Poison could be traced back to the murderer. But what if the deaths looked like an accident? An unfortunate tragedy that no one could have prevented. Shakuni smiled. He had found the perfect solution. A magnificent palace would be built in the distant town of Varanavata. It would appear luxurious, spacious, and beautiful. The Pandavas would be invited to stay there during a local festival, but hidden beneath its elegance was a deadly secret. The palace would be constructed almost entirely from lacquer, resin, dry bamboo, oil, clarified butter, and other highly flammable materials. To the eye, it would look like a royal residence. In reality, it would be nothing more than a carefully disguised funeral pyre waiting for a single spark. King Dhritarashtra, torn between his love for his sons and his duty toward his nephews, allowed the plan to proceed. With gentle words and a fatherly smile, he encouraged the Pandavas to visit Varanavata and enjoy the festivities. His invitation sounded sincere, but beneath his kindness lay silence, a silence that would nearly cost the Pandavas their lives. To carry out the plan, Duryodhana appointed his trusted servant Purakana. His instructions were simple: build the palace, earn the trust of the Pandavas. Build the palace, earn the trust of the Pandavas. Wait patiently until everyone was asleep, then set the palace ablaze and make certain that no one escaped. Fortunately for the Pandavas, there was one man in Hastinapura whose loyalty was guided not by ambition but by wisdom. Vidura, the wise minister and half-brother of Dhritarashtra, understood exactly what was happening. He recognized the danger long before anyone else, yet he knew he could not openly warn the Pandavas. The palace was full of spies, and even a careless word could expose the conspiracy. Instead, Vidura chose a different path. Speaking in riddles that only Yudhishthira could understand, he delivered a cryptic warning. He said that one who recognizes danger before it arrives can survive, just as a rat escapes a forest fire because it has another path beneath the earth. To anyone else, these words sounded like an ordinary proverb, but Yudhishthira immediately understood the hidden meaning. Their greatest danger was not an enemy with weapons, it was the house itself, and their only hope would be a secret tunnel. Imagine hearing such a warning. Would you understand what it meant, or would you dismiss it as a strange saying? Yudhishthira's ability to interpret Vidura's message would ultimately save his entire family. Soon after the Pandavas arrived in Varanavata, they began living in the palace exactly as expected. They laughed, attended festivals, met local people, and behaved as though they suspected nothing. Purakana watched them every day and slowly became convinced that his victims had fallen into his trap. Meanwhile, under the cover of darkness, another story was unfolding. A trusted worker secretly sent by Vidura began digging beneath the palace. Every night, while the world slept peacefully above, he carved a narrow passage through the earth. Handful by handful, the tunnel grew longer. Above ground, the palace looked like a symbol of royal luxury. Underground, it became the pathway to survival. Months passed. Purakana relaxed. He believed success was inevitable. The Pandavas seemed comfortable. They showed no sign of fear. But what he failed to realize was that they were patiently waiting not for his move, but for the right moment to make their own. Finally, the tunnel was complete. Rather than waiting helplessly for Purakana to attack, Yudhishthira made a bold decision. If destruction was inevitable, they would choose the time. On the chosen night, a great feast was organized. Many guests came to celebrate. Among them was an Ishada woman and her 5 sons. After hours of eating and celebration, the guests fell into a deep sleep. Silence settled over the palace. Then came the moment. The fire was lit. Within seconds, the highly flammable walls erupted into flames. Lac melted like wax. Oil fed the blaze. Bamboo cracked loudly as the inferno spread through every room. The fire moved with terrifying speed, leaving almost no chance for escape. Purakana himself was caught inside the trap he had created. The palace that was meant to kill the Pandavas became his own tomb. Outside, the people of Varanavata watched in horror as the magnificent palace disappeared beneath towering flames. By dawn, nothing remained but ashes. When the burnt bodies were discovered, everyone assumed the worst. The Nishada woman and her sons were mistaken for Kanti and the Pandavas. News reached Hastinapura that the sons of Pandu had perished in a tragic accident. Duryodhana believed his greatest obstacle had finally been removed. The Kauravas quietly celebrated. Across the kingdom, grief spread as people mourned the princes they thought they had lost forever. But beneath the ashes lay the truth. While the world believed they were dead, the Pandavas were crawling through the dark tunnel that Vidura had wisely prepared. Hidden from sight, they emerged into the dense forest beyond the town, leaving behind not only the burning palace but also their former lives. Their journey, however, had only just begun. The forest was dark and unforgiving. Kanti was exhausted from the ordeal. Nakula and Sahadeva struggled to continue. Even Arjuna and Yudhishthira, despite their determination, were worn down by fatigue. At that moment, Bhima once again revealed why he was unlike any other warrior. Without complaint, he lifted his mother onto his shoulders and carried his brothers through the wilderness. He crossed rivers, climbed rough terrain, and walked through the night without slowing down. His immense physical strength became the shield that protected his entire family. But even more remarkable than his power was his unwavering devotion. Bhima did not see his burden as heavy because he carried those he loved. The House of Lac marks one of the great turning points in the Mahabharata. Before this incident, the rivalry between the Kauravas and the Pandavas was driven by jealousy and competition. After the fire, there could be no doubt an attempt had been made to destroy an entire family. Trust between the two branches of the Kuru dynasty was shattered forever. Yet this episode teaches a lesson that goes far beyond politics and revenge. The Pandavas survived not because they were the strongest, nor because they possessed the largest army. They survived because wisdom recognized danger before it arrived. Patience allowed them to wait for the right moment. Preparation gave them a path to escape. Vidura's foresight, Yudhishthira's calm judgment, and Bhima's extraordinary strength all worked together. If even one of these had failed, the story of the Mahabharata might have ended before the Great War had ever begun. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the House of Lac. Strength may save you when disaster strikes, but wisdom often prevents disaster from claiming you in the first place. Sometimes the greatest victories are not won on the battlefield. Sometimes they are won in silence, in careful planning, and in choosing the right path long before the fire begins.